Welcome to another episode of DWeb Decoded. My name is Clara Tsao. I'm a founding member, a founding officer of the Filecoin Foundation, and I'm here with Ben from Gensyn. Gensyn is named Gensyn, hopefully not after the NVIDIA founder.
No,
tell me more about the history of Gensyn and why it's named that, what you guys do, how you guys got started.
Sure. So Gensyn has been going for just over 5 years now. We are a decentralized AI company, so we build very low-level machine learning infrastructure to allow machine learning to be done on any device in the world. Very early on in our life, we did privacy-preserving machine learning. So we did very distributed machine learning, but for finance use cases within tier one banks. One of the first use cases we ever did was generating synthetic data privately and using federated learning, which is a technique to split models over many different locations. And so the name came from generate synthetic early on because we had a pilot with a very large bank and we had to create a company and move very quickly. And the name stuck since then. So we don't do synthetic data generation anymore, although you could on the Gensyn technology. Now we do just that infrastructure to allow the machine learning to be done anywhere. So you can think about us as doing four main things. We build execution libraries. We have our own compiler for doing execution on any device. We build communication libraries to allow machine learning models to communicate with each other across local networks or the internet or any kind of connectivity. We do verification libraries. So those devices, when they're executing and communicating, they can trust each other without having humans involved or legal contracts or companies or anything like that. It's entirely programmatic. And then finally, coordination. So if you assume that you have every device in the world doing machine learning together, they can all trust each other, they can all communicate, how do you actually use them as a resource? So do I want to train a model on a single device or maybe a million MacBooks? You have to figure out how to find the devices and tell them exactly what you want them to do.
No, amazing. And how has the landscape of AI changed since 5 years ago? Obviously, a lot of consumers today know what AI is. You've seen the rise of a lot of different chatbots and a lot of consumer adoption. So just curious about how that's impacted your day-to-day in terms of who you're trying to reach, how you're growing your community, and what success looks like for you guys down the road.
Sure. I think the biggest change is probably the world now knows about it and uses it. So GPT and then the ChatGPT moment was obviously huge for machine learning. Before that, it was applied in various industrial areas. There were lots of academics thinking about how it could be applied in the real world. Everybody in the space believed it would be hugely transformational. That's why obviously we dedicated our kind of careers to it. But people didn't really know exactly how. ChatGPT started the productization kind of movement. So it showed that there was a real use case where the everyday person on the street would start using machine learning in a certain way. I think that's just absolutely the start, though. I've always thought that chatbots are probably the most naive use case for this technology. They're the immediate first way you could think of to interact with like a large language model. But they're definitely not the kind of final form, I would say. And so I think what we've done in the past few years is move machine learning from being something coming out of academia and going into industry to something that's having its real kind of like consumer productization moment. And for us as a company, we've been building infrastructure, so the tools to allow others to build these applications. And what we've realized through that time is realistically, what we need to do is show what those applications can be. So there's huge benefits to decentralizing the infrastructure itself. It's kind of why we've been doing it. You unlock scale, you unlock access to data at the edge and human input and things like that. But if you hand that to the world and don't tell people exactly how you can use it, they won't know. And so we're in a similar boat to, I guess, OpenAI were before ChatGPT, where you've got this amazing technology, but the world hasn't really realized yet exactly how amazing it is. And so you have to do the work to show the world what is possible. And so for Gensyn, that's the phase we're in right now. It's basically we've built the technology. Most of it is at the kind of V0.1, V1 level. It's all kind of ready at the infrastructure layer. Now we need to build on top of that, start building out the applications themselves, and ultimately the platform in the middle so that other people can build applications. And then we can have a much richer kind of set of products that exist in the world than just chatbots.
No, amazing. And obviously you came from a background in academia, even though you've worked on AI in so many years. What made you decide, I want to go and build this company? I want to build this and outside of the academia realm. And I'm also curious around the why crypto component.
Yeah.
Do you see yourselves first as an AI company first, then crypto? Do you see yourself crypto first? Do you see yourself in parallel with that narrative? Because obviously everyone is using crypto rails when they think about the best way to do decentralization today.
Yeah. So for me, like you say, my background's in academia. So I did my PhD in deep learning specifically, starting 10 years ago in 2015. And I focused on evolutionary algorithms, so swarm algorithms for optimizing the structure of neural networks, which is a very parallelizable task. Essentially, instead of having a human sit down and handcraft the structure of a neural network, which is just a big graph, basically, you can treat that as a big optimization problem, and you can use optimization algorithms to search for the optimal structure. And so I was exposed to highly parallelizable processes alongside deep learning very early on, but I hit resource constraints just constantly. So I was a PhD student with very little funding to actually get hardware and run these things. And I built machines under my desk that could run the search processes that I was designing, but I had like 4 GPUs. And Google had thousands of them. They'd run things for weeks at a time to do these huge searches. And it was just very clear to me that academia didn't really have access to those resources. Even in the best academic labs, they were still lagging behind industry. And also, the way that the kind of space was moving, the people dictating the future of machine learning weren't necessarily the academics, because running these techniques wasn't possible to them. So actually, the people that were dictating that future were the people with the resources. And I thought, that doesn't kind of feel right to me. I wanted to do something about that. So that's what kind of showed me the problem that existed in the world. And then because I'd run these very parallelizable techniques, I knew that you could parallelize these machine learning operations way more than we currently did. Most of the world was focused on these really dense interconnects where you'd take a data center, you'd put a load of GPUs together as close as possible, and you'd run a really dense model. But I was looking at these techniques where you would split it almost infinitely. You could have thousands of different pieces all operating in parallel, and then you could recombine them. And it was very possible. It worked pretty effectively. And so I saw that and said, okay, let's scale that to the maximum degree we can. I met my co-founder who'd experienced the resource constraints himself in industry. And so he'd seen the problems as well. And we teamed up to basically say, okay, we can alleviate those resource constraints if we bring those parallelizable machine learning techniques to a new infrastructure for connecting up devices. And so that was where we first started. We very quickly hit a problem, which was the verification problem, or trust. So to get this to the largest degree you possibly can get it, you need to be able to solve the problem that if I have a machine learning model and you have a GPU or a TPU or something like that, and I want to execute my model on your device, in the current world, I have to trust you, which means I have to know who you are. I probably have to KYC you. We have to sign a legal contract. We have to communicate. All of these things, which are bottlenecks on top of the real work that's going on, which is actually just the transfer of bits and bytes and then the execution of them. And so we looked at that and said, can you solve that with technology? And it turns out you can, but you need crypto. The only way to solve the verification problem that for us to solve our issue, we need a trusted third party. We need somebody who we both trust, who can vouch on our behalf and say, yes, this person did this correctly or didn't. And so we hit that wall and then realized that that third party could be the consensus of many nodes in the way kind of proof of work works or the way proof of stake works. As long as you can execute something on those nodes, then you can settle this whole system out. And so we started building that, and that was what brought us into the crypto world. And then I think we, as co-founders, just realized that we are philosophically aligned with that as well, right? Like, to me, it's the way of building the next genre of open source. It's how you fund open source. It's how you can have the same dynamics as open source over expensive resources, where previously you just couldn't have that. Open source only worked on very inexpensive things like code. And so that really brought us in, but at our heart, we're still a machine learning company. Ultimately, we solve machine learning problems. We solve scalability problems, access problems, access to data, compute, expert knowledge from humans, etc. But we do that through crypto rails, and there's many, many things that get enabled by that. Some things that are outside of just solving the verification problem. So like coordination of huge model training runs doesn't need to be done by a single company. It could be done by the crowd, all funding things together without even knowing who each other are or having access to a single bank account or anything. So we're very much kind of in this world, but first and foremost, we're machine learning infrastructure.
No, that's great. Well, with that, I am actually curious with you on your thoughts around the growing decentralized AI movement in crypto. We're here at Consensus. There's a lot of companies we actually just hosted a decentralized agents night here in this space last night. But I'm curious about what is your report card on where you hear the names and brands coming in to say they are building the next big thing that's going to disrupt centralized AI. Do you feel good about it? Do you feel like there might be some players in it for the wrong reasons? What's your report card?
Yeah, good question. I think I've been a bit outspoken about this in the past multiple times, and skewed negative in the past, because I think broadly the crypto space likes to sprint before it can walk, and that causes lots of problems. So people will see a vision and an idea and they'll run straight towards that without necessarily solving the real technical or product problems. And then you get this huge capital formation from retail, which actually doesn't contribute to solving the problem. And then the bubble pops and you go down a kind of chasm again, and then you get real kind of the real solutions coming after that. I was concerned maybe 6+ months ago that we were going into that, basically. I've actually softened that stance because I think there are a lot of good things going on in the space now. We're seeing real kind of AI talent coming into the space. We're seeing people building things which do head towards solving problems. A lot of it is still kind of academic research and benchmark chasing, which I think it kind of plagues machine learning in general. I think we're moving past the sort of academic benchmarks and into, does this actually solve a problem for a person in the real world? And I think decentralized AI can actually focus in on that and can be the place where you solve problems for people, because you can go straight to the person, you can execute on device, etc. So we have an opportunity there. But yeah, in general, we are seeing good work in the space. There's still the usual kind of grifts and problems, but it's better than I thought it was 6 months ago, is my report card.
No, amazing. And we spoke earlier about talent. You talked about the need and growth of AI talent coming in from where you're hiring. And also today in AI, we see a lot of that using crypto rails. What kind of talent does AI talent look like today, coming in from universities or from the research community? There's a lot of jobs today, even being a software engineer or being another role where AI might be actually replacing those roles. So I'm curious about what should people study today to be prepared for the AI of the future? And what do you look for when you are recruiting for the best talent for your company?
Sure. In terms of what people should study, I have a cop-out answer for this, but I feel very strongly about it, that people should study the thing that they get the most energy from and that they're most interested in, because ultimately that leads to the best outcome for you over the long term. You're going to be able to put more energy into that thing than anybody else is because you have the energy for it. And so you're taking a bet that it will align with a way of you kind of funding your existence and being able to eat and things like that. But chances are you will be able to. But it'll generally, over the course of your life, just give you far more, I would say, happiness working on the thing that you're interested in and being driven to do that for that reason rather than chasing money or something and actually being miserable at work. So it's like I say, it's a bit of a cop-out answer because it doesn't say, oh, you should study machine learning because, I don't know, other jobs will be replaced or whatever. I don't actually think that. I think nobody knows what's going to happen. So in the face of that uncertainty, what you can be sure is at least I'm doing the thing that I actually enjoy in this moment and the next moment, because I'll choose the thing that moves on from this and that I also enjoy. And then through time, you'll never look back and say, why did I do that for 5 years of my life? Because you did it because you enjoyed it. That's enough. So that's my generic kind of stance on what people should study, what they should focus on. In terms of what we look for in hires, particularly machine learning, but elsewhere as well, that passion. So people who are genuinely deeply passionate about the thing that they do. So the people that have studied it because they were interested in it, not necessarily because they thought it would lead to a good job or something like that, which I think in machine learning we're in a good place right now for it, because most of the people that are at the stage in their career where they would be appropriate to work for us had to choose to study this before it was that exciting. I think going forward, maybe you get the kind of bubble of grads that come through, and then at that point, maybe it's harder to determine who has real energy and who doesn't. But for us, I think we're in a decent spot for it. In general, in terms of roles that we hire, we hire in the same way the big tech labs do. So we need the same machine learning researchers, engineers, applied researchers that they do. It's very tough market right now. We have it harder because we have to convince people of the decentralized aspect and the crypto aspect ultimately, which historically the machine learning space has been very negative about. I went to Europe's 4 years ago where it was outwardly hostile to us if we said anything to do with crypto or blockchain. I went this year and actually it wasn't hostile. There's still kind of negative sentiment, but people were interested and open, particularly around just decentralization and scale. So it's definitely changing, but we do still have a kind of harder job than I would think normal machine learning companies would have. But in general, we have the same strategies of them. So when you can't hire people necessarily directly out of big tech, obviously sometimes you can, but when you can't, you go kind of earlier career, you go to getting interns, you get people during their PhD, and you get them really bought into the space. You kind of teach them as they progress, and then they become fantastic employees later on. It's what every lab is doing as well, because they're all fighting over the same people. But yeah, it's a tough market right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to ask, because I do know that there's a lot of traditional, very good machine learning researchers that today still might be on the fence about the crypto movement and really getting the value of privacy preserving or why decentralization matters. Those are key things that we also care a lot about when we're thinking about decentralized storage and our short-term and long-term target community, and also who comes to the table. I'm also curious about the amount of tools today that actually help you get your day-to-day done. A lot of people are vibe coding these days. A lot of people are thinking about ways to make things more efficient. Actually, this week during our Filecoin Dev Summit, we actually built an agent to help record and answer questions for people that weren't able to attend every session. They can still get a set of notes. So I'm curious about that kind of culture internally for your team. How much do you encourage people to play with existing tools, to look around, because the space is obviously moving so quickly in overall, and even in how a company operates? Yeah,
totally. I mean, we heavily encourage it. I think realistically, the future, everyone is going to be augmented by AI in basically everything they do. I always think about it's obviously cliche, but I think about it a lot like the calculator, right? Like we spent a long time as human society saying, will we have calculators everywhere in the future? Like you need to learn everything from kind of base principles and need to be able to do it by memory rather than trusting that you'll have a calculator alongside you all the time in the future. And fast forward, we have calculators everywhere. That's fine for the vast majority of things. And yes, you're going to have people who go all the way down to base principles and they change the way things work and they do novel research, but that's not necessarily everyone. A lot of people will be just trying to apply a technique to another area, or they'll be trying to make a change in a certain industry where they could just do it much more effectively if they have an AI sidekick, as it were. What form that sidekick takes, we don't know. It's evolving constantly. I'm glad to see now that we're moving from just chatbots to much deeper integrations, because I think that's the most sort of obvious next move. Even if it does kind of happen in token space, which people aren't really sure, will we have language models? Are they the foundation model of the future? Or actually is some other structure better? Is some like graph network or something a better foundation model? In essence, it doesn't matter. Even through the kind of token space, you can still have completely new interfaces that don't rely purely on chat. And so this idea that the user interface of a website or a tool that you're using can just morph and change based on your interactions, be completely unique to you and the exact task that you're doing right now, I think we're strong believers in. Our belief is that very soon we will have kind of agents, models, whatever you want to call them, running in the background behind every interaction you have with technology. And they'll just be improving your ability to do whatever it is that you're trying to do, even if that's not clear. And so things like reinforcement learning, the idea of assistance games, these things where we train a model to run alongside the human and just augment them, I think are going to be huge. And yeah, in terms of how we apply it in Gensyn, we basically say to everyone, look, just use the tools, try them out, see what works for you. I think coding tools are the most obvious thing, right? Like in an IDE, one of the just simplest cases, I think, to show somebody technical the power of these things is just to replace your search with just asking a model. And in doing that, you can still treat it as search. You don't have to say, okay, no, I'm handing away my ability to code, and you don't have to get like personally kind of offended by it. You can just say, look, all I'm doing is searching. It's just search got way better, like way better than it was before by running through a model. And I think as a way in for technical people who might be quite proud of the work that they do and say, no, this could never be augmented by a model, it's very hard for them to kind of say no to that because it is just better search.
No, amazing. Well, last question I wanted to ask you is, we're going to be on stage at Consensus tomorrow. And the question is Web3 losing or winning the AI race? I'm curious about a preview of your thoughts. I have my thoughts, but would love to hear from you how you're thinking about that question.
Sure. I think I don't really think about it in terms of a race. I think realistically, Web3 hasn't shown what it's really good at for AI yet. And I don't think that's a problem, realistically. I don't think it's going to lose for whatever reason to the centralized AI space, because I think the centralized AI space still hasn't really figured out what it's doing. There's kind of big obvious examples here where when OpenAI did ChatGPT and when they kind of showed the world what was possible there, a lot of people said, oh my God, right, OpenAI have won. That's it. They've done it. They beat DeepMind, they beat Meta, it's kind of solved. And then actually what we saw from that was this explosion of new companies like Perplexity, like Cursor and things like that, where actually enormous market cap companies can exist. There is revenue in many different areas and it's not being captured by a single player. So actually, I think we're still super early in the competition in the centralized space. And in the decentralized space, I think nobody's actually even shown their cards yet. Like we haven't really demonstrated a clear use case that shows why decentralization is better. I obviously have an incredibly strong belief that it is in many areas. But even amongst all of the decentralized AI companies, there hasn't, in my opinion, been a demonstration of that. There's been demonstrations of, hey, we can get somewhat close to benchmark parity on this academic task, but that's table stakes. It's also not as interesting to us as a company. What's interesting to us is, can you solve some real world problem in a way that Web 2 AI couldn't? Because as soon as that happens, everyone's going to flip their opinion and be like, oh my God, okay, decentralized AI is actually kind of huge for this area. But like I said, no one's shown that yet, in my opinion.
No, that's great. Well, we'll find out in a year or two when we review this episode of DWeb Decoded. We'll see if Ben is right. But thank you so much for coming on the show. We're so excited to have you. I'm so excited to talk to you more tomorrow. And we're also excited to explore more ways that we can work together from a decentralized storage infrastructure layer and all the amazing work you're doing around making sure every device and computer out there can really do machine learning.
Totally. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.